you for joining another episode of my podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, one that when I created this podcast was really one that this story is one that came to mind. And I wanted this person to come on as badly as I have any guest that I've had so far. And the reason why is because this story really embodies the resilience, the hope, the giving back, everything that I wanted to have involved in this podcast. This story embodies it. And so with great honor, I want to introduce Ty Eschenbaum. Just to give you a quick background story on how we met, because it ties in. And Ty, you don't know this story, I don't think, but a mutual friend of ours and I, were ice fishing on Lake Poncet. And this goes back a few years ago, and the generator went out, and we could not get it started. And if any one of you haven't ice fished before, the generator is very important when you're ice fishing, especially if you're going to stay out on the ice overnight. Without a generator, you don't have heat. Without heat, sit in the middle of an ice-covered lake, it'll get awfully cold. And so you could not get the generator started. And Nathan, our friend, said, "Hey, I said, I've got a place for us to go." And he says, I'm gonna give Ty a call. So, okay. So Ty answers the phone. We load up our stuff. We head over to Ty's place. And Ty, Nathan gave me the shortest Cliff Notes version of your story right before we walk in the door. I mean, we're literally driving and he starts telling me your story and I'm blown away. I'm like, so as you and I, you welcome us into your home. And in my mind, I'm just going 1,000 miles an hour. And, one thing with you is there's such a peace and a calmness about you. And obviously that comes from your faith, which I'm sure you'll talk about. But we walk in the door and the very first thing I noticed was the books everywhere. And so I knew right away this guy was smart, but I didn't know how big his heart was. And so, Ty, I'm going to let you kind of get started. You work with A1 Development Solutions. And so maybe you just want to give us a quick background, where you're from, because I think that ties into your first hurdle, the real big hurdle that you had in life. So just kind of tell us where you're from, what you're doing, and hop into that first challenge that you had as a teenager.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've been looking forward to this. Do podcasts from time to time, but knowing somebody like you that's doing one, and this is gonna be fun. So yeah, South Dakota born and raised kid. Family's in the cattle business. I grew up at Lake Preston, town of 500, class of 20, 21. SDSU grad. Yeah, three brothers, mom and dad, and brothers still on the farm, still plugged in with the family farm quite a bit. We're in the seed stock Charlet business. That's the background. And so I guess before I start there, day job, yeah, A1 Development Solutions. My business partners are Mark Mickelson, Paul Cos both, and Kyle Peters. We got a team of 8. We do site selection, permitting, PR for typically big ag and community development type of projects. I've been doing that for 7-8 years now. So offices, Sioux Falls and Brookings, but that keeps me busy during the day. Yeah, my story goes back, just kind of your all-American kid, growing up on the farm, small town, sports, being involved in all extracurriculars, just having a blast. My freshman year of high school, sports were kind of my life. I would have been coming back as a sophomore as our starting varsity quarterback, point guard. We had some good relay teams. School came to me easy. I thought I was pretty cool. I thought I was awesome. I thought I had the whole world figured out. And I think God has continued to humble me and help me understand how the world works and what's important in the best possible way. So I was diagnosed with leukemia right after my freshman year of high school. No signs, no symptoms. I mean, just like a low-grade fever, tired, I ran my best quarter time at the region track meet like 2.5 weeks before, just completely out of nowhere. We're going to take a family trip. Hey, Ty's not feeling great. He probably needs a shot or something, and left the hospital with a cancer diagnosis. So completely blindsided my family. I was in amazing shape. I mean, I've been playing varsity ball all year, football, basketball, track, and yeah, the doors closed, the walls closed in pretty quick. So, what proceeded the next 3 years is just, uh, it's an unbelievable story. It's a medical anomaly. Not only did I have leukemia, ALL, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, but every possible, I think, drug interaction, complication, immune, whatever, if it was going to happen, it was going to happen to me. And so I could tell stories, I could tell war stories for hours, unbelievable stuff. But, I had portacath get staph infection multiple times. I had uh, an aspergillus fungus that was growing in my lung that is normally a death sentence, but they caught it in time and literally took. I had surgery. I have a scar from my spine to my right side where they broke ribs and took my lung out multiple times to make sure they got all the spores, because normally that stuff metastasizes through everything. And they got the only hope I had was to go in and get it all out. And that's what they did twice. Um, I went from 160 pounds to 106 pounds. I could no longer stand. I could no longer walk. Um, I had a feeding tube keeping me alive. I could no longer sleep back past 45 degrees. I had to sleep upright in the bed because I was so skinny, that if I laid back all the way, my stomach was draping over my spine and it was splitting it into two, so it wouldn't function properly. And I was 6 foot tall and weighed 106 pounds. Did Most people, looking back on it, including I think a lot of my doctors, was pretty sure that I wasn't going to leave that hospital. They didn't know if they got a fungus. They didn't know. They didn't know if the chemotherapy was working. They couldn't keep weight on me. Couldn't walk anymore. It looked really, really bleak, to be honest. And I give speeches. I just believe in the power of attitude and your mental fortitude. Just what it's your mind that quits. Your body is able to do unbelievable things if your mind tells it gives it permission to. And I think part of the reason that I'm still here is not because I was so determined or whatever. It's just that I would say, ignorant. Like, nobody told me that I wasn't supposed to. Nobody told me it was that close. I get asked, and I never thought about not making it one single time because I didn't know it was that bad. It wasn't until later, I ended up doing chemotherapy for 2.5 years. I mean, it was Christmas of my senior year of high school before I got done doing chemotherapy. And, one of the last visits, obviously my doctor is one of the greatest men I've ever met. I mean, he's the reason I'm still here. And we had a heart-to-heart one time, one of the few times my mom didn't come with me, and I'm 18 at this point, and had a heart-to-heart with him. And he's like, I was close. Like, there's no way you should be here right now. And kind of walked me through, like, hey, didn't know if chemo was working, didn't know if we got all this fungus. We couldn't keep, you went from 130, 120, 110, you just kept going downhill. And it hit me like, oh, like, I didn't realize it was that bad at so anyway.
Ty, did you ever, I mean, obviously the 2.5 years of chemo, and we know that most people probably listening know what that will do to someone's body. Did I understand somewhere along the line, did you pursue some alternative types of remedies, and did you travel abroad to kind of explore that?
I did. It does. I mean, 2.5 years, they're basically trying to kill you. As the point of chemotherapy is to kill as many cells as possible in hopes of killing the bad ones and letting the good ones regrow. I mean, that's chemotherapy 101. And so yeah, it wreaks havoc on your body. And so part of what I deal with is it induced the prednisone as part of my chemotherapy regimen, induced avascular necrosis. So that's the dying of your joints because the blood flow got restricted. So cartilage, bone, tendons, everything's crumbling because it's not getting blood. And so I was doing my own research and found doctors in Baltimore and across the Mayo, and I was getting knee surgeries, elbow surgeries at an external fixator on my elbow that I carried my senior high school, trying to save my joints. My elbows only opened so far. My knees were crumbling. My hips were collapsing. I was headed for a wheelchair, and I kept reading. Me doing my own research, I kept reading about a bed or a 250 bed hospital in Beijing, China, that does traditional Chinese medicine hybrid with Western medicine, but all focused on, restoring blood flow to the joints. And long story short, I finally at 18, got my folks convinced to let me go. And my mom and I went there for 30 days the first time. And I went there 17 times over a 7-year period. And they saved my joints, no doubt. Like my joints aren't perfect, but they restored blood flow to them and saved them all. And so, yeah, it's a pretty wild.
So what is your, so let's date this back. What years were these? And so obviously there's some distance between that time and where you are today. What do you like? Are you fully recovered from this? Is there a possibility of you going back into a state, or is this always in the back of your mind, or where are you at today with this?
Joint wise, this was 2005, 2006. No, I graduated high school in 2006. After that, 2007, 2008, and then for the next 7 years. So coming up on 10 years since I've been to China. Yeah, my joints aren't perfect. The damage was done. So I actually got a total hip replaced here last year, which has been the greatest decision. My knees, they've got free floating, I get knees scope from time to time. Both my elbows don't open all the way. In general, shoulders, wrists, ankles are a little arthritic, but most people don't really notice. I can walk. I'm not gonna run, or I can't play sports. But I can walk. I can get around. It's really unbelievable if you see me, and to think not only where my joints were at, because I was headed for a wheelchair, 100%. But then just the chemotherapy. I mean, they were always testing my eyesight, testing my hormone levels, testing my GI tract because of the damage. And today, I deal with some joint pain stuff, but beyond that, I'm not on anything. I don't have, I'm as healthy as a horse, which is it's an unbelievable blessing.
It's truly like you had said, the doctor explained, it's a medical miracle.
Yeah.
And so at that point, when you're going through this as a teenager, did you have a relationship with God at that point, so that you relied heavily on your faith, or were you still, hey, I'm a teenager and I'm just kind of relying on my own
Well, like my family's always had a strong faith, driven by my mother, so we grew up in the church and whatever. But certainly the faith I have today was built when I was sick, because I mean, literally, when you think back on it, and I certainly have. At 15, like I said, I was coming back as a starting quarterback. Had a cute girlfriend, school was easy, like life is awesome. And 6 months later, I was a walking skeleton that, couldn't play sports anymore, would never be an athlete again, didn't know where I fit in the world, and had to try to find a date to the prom. And just, I felt like everything that I cared about got taken from me
Sure.
right now. Right. And everything that I identified with and who I thought I was gone. And I know most kids like sports and whatever, but to me, it was like That's like if you like playing the piano or painting or riding horses, I don't know, and then being told you'll never get to do that again in your life, ever. At 15, 16 years old, that's hard to understand. And at the same time, there's 6 other families that shared the critical section of Aaron McKinnon and St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester. And the oldest was a boy, he's about 17, by the name of Tyler Wilcox from Pierce, South Dakota. And the youngest was an 18-month-old baby from a Hutterite colony named Purity. And my family and I went to all 6 of their funerals. And without question, I had a worse diagnosis than all of them. When you look at all the complications and everything. And so not only not knowing where I fit in the world, but at the same time, just the survivor's guilt of why do I still get to be here? These kids don't. Why, and I've had all this crazy stuff. Why do I get to still be here? And so, when you talk about my faith, like, yeah, I mean, that's where it was built. And I get I do a ton of speaking events. I did my first speaking event at a K through 12 high school when I was still sick, when I was a junior and still sick, couldn't even stand for the whole thing. They had to bring me a chair. And I haven't stopped giving speeches. So a lot of middle schools, a lot of high schools. And, I get pretty into the weeds and don't pull the punches with these kids and just talk about, life's not fair. It's not supposed to be fair. It's okay. You have everything inside of you to handle literally anything that this life is going to throw at you, if you believe it. Attitude, perspective, all this stuff. But I also talk a lot about, I've had amazing family, amazing doctors, amazing friends, people that are there for you. So I certainly don't discount that, but I talk a lot about the one-to-one and you and your own self, in your own mind, because 99% of battles in your life are in your own mind. And so, my faith was built at, laying in a hospital bed from midnight till 6 in the morning in the pitch black when nobody's there. Right? I mean, there's a lot of times everybody cares, everybody wants to help, but when you're going through stuff, medical, loss, grief, relationship, whatever, there's a lot of alone time. There's a lot of you and yourself trying to figure things out. And so that's where I feel like I've come to rely on God because He's taken me to my absolute knees and taken what I feel like is everything from me, so I didn't have a choice. I can't do this on my own. And that's where my faith comes from.
Well, and for anyone that doesn't know the story, it's like this is just the beginning, isn't it? That truly, like your tests of your faith and hope and all of this is this is a massive hurdle. Obviously, you survived it, but there's so much more. But before we go there, so in 2011, I think is when you founded. Is that when you started your foundation to give back to the kids?
Yep. So in 2011, I knew when I went to the funerals of my friends that, like, I got to do something, right? Like, I've been given a life, I've been given an opportunity. I'm supposed to do something with this, and I'm still not sure exactly what that is, but I know that I'm supposed to keep trying and keep trying to figure it out. And so I always knew that we'd be doing something. So I was doing speaking events and trying to just tell my story because, it never bothered me. It never bothered me to tell my story or get into the weeds about how I felt, or, some people don't like to talk about that stuff. It's never bothered me. It is what it is. And to the extent I can help somebody, great. And so I started speaking when I was 16, haven't stopped. Founded the Ty Eschenbaum Foundation in 2011. Started raising money for youth cancer survivors. The quickest way I knew how to get money back to those families that have, kids that deserve it, that should be recognized for what they went through. Also, probably, like me, didn't have a job or whatever because they're too busy trying to survive, and were able to make it to college and probably had financial burdens as families that most didn't. And so we started funding youth cancer survivor scholarships back in 2011.
Yeah, and the inspiration of all of that obviously comes from that fight. Um, but we move on into your life, and talk us through. When did you and Autumn meet? Walk us through that portion of your life.
Yeah, and to go back, I mean, even through high school and college, like my ups and downs have been crazy, right? So I've gotten to do some amazing things, and out of college, did international trade for the state, and got to go on trade missions to China and Russia and Kazakhstan, and was in South Dakota Ag and Rural Leadership, went to South America, and so um, I'm about. I always tell people probably the most blessed person you'll ever meet. But my life story is crazy. It has a lot of crazy positives as well. But yeah, met Autumn, kind of just a random deal as they are, and we just clicked 100% from day one. And life was good. We lived together at Lake Poncet. Not quite married yet, not quite have kids yet, but certainly we're months or years away from both of those things. So it felt like, yeah, this is finally, I get it now. This is why I was supposed to be faithful, be humble. Better days are coming, and yeah. I can't believe it now, 5 years ago, last month, Autumn just collapsed working out in our basement. She was 24 years old. She had no medical complications that we knew of whatsoever. Blood clot, pulmonary embolism. She fought for hours, got to the emergency room. She fought for hours, and didn't make it. And so, that's a whole new chapter. And I knew then that, like, it, as much as I wanted to fight it, I knew that I was prepared to handle this better than most anybody else, unfortunately. And that didn't make it any easier, and that didn't make it suck any less. But for me, losing Autumn was, I would have gone through cancer 10 times before I lost her once, just because in my mind, she was, that was my future, my forever person, the person that you spend more time with than anybody. That's where children, a family comes from. And so I felt like God took everything that I cared about for the second time, and this one hurt worse than the first time.
At this point, are you're rock solid in your faith, but you just said it. God's taken everything from me. Are you starting to doubt a little bit at this point, or are you still feeling like, hey, this is part of a plan, or like, where are you mentally? Because
I've never. I think I can honestly say that I've never doubted. I mean, I'm not saying I haven't gotten angry at God. I certainly have. Like I say in my speeches, like, God knows that I think his plan sucks, right? Like, I've told him enough times, like, this sucks. Why does it have to be this way? But I've never lost my faith. Like, I think part of that comes from when I was in the hospital. Like, if you actually stop and think about it, somebody always has it worse. Millions and billions of people have it worse across the board, right? Like, you can't have civil wars in Africa where hundreds of thousands of families are getting killed and they don't have food and shelter, and and say that, well, my life sucks, God, why are you doing this to me, right? So I knew it was what I found now, and what I've tried to do with my foundation is, if there's something that I can do to help people not feel the way that I felt multiple times in my life, I'll do almost anything to help relieve some of that suffering. But the second thing is, I felt like I found a level in my faith that I just had to fully accept the fact that I'm not in control. I'm walking in the dark. Life is short. I'm supposed to do the best I can. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I'm just okay with it. I'm just okay with all of it. Like I just don't know what could happen to me that would fully hurt me, because I've survived so much, and it's always, God has always taken care of me 100% of the time. I just, I see people go through things, and I can see that they're not where I'm at, just because, I've had to. And so yeah, to the extent that I can help other people, remember you're not in charge. Remember it's not your plan. Remember, if God told you the plan, you wouldn't understand it, wouldn't believe him. You'd ask him to change it. This life is it's such a blink of an eye in the scheme of eternity. Um, yeah, and it's just the
And
way
I think there's two big takeaways that I know I just pulled from this, because this, for anyone that doesn't know, this is the first time I'm hearing Ty tell this story, because I got, like I said in the beginning, I heard a 2-minute version of it, which doesn't do it any, I don't want to say don't do it any justice, but to hear it from Ty, it takes on a whole new meaning, because you've experienced it. And you just said that word perspective, of like how awful things can be for us, and yet we still know that someone out there is dealing with something even worse, and it's some of these cases it's not temporary, it's a forever type of feeling that, or experience that just never seems to end. And so, I think your positivity of looking through that is huge. And I think that's what most people probably take away from you once they've met you, is, like I said in the very beginning as well, is like there's a peace and a calmness about you that you've accepted, that you're not in control. And I think that your higher level of thinking, um, whether it came from this or whether it was there all the time, and it just kind of enhanced it, but maybe part of this was you kind of had to go through it to even learn it, to even at a deeper level. And you said some people aren't where you're at, and it's so true. And so I'm hoping that anyone that's listening to us, that's going through maybe a serious sickness or a loss, understands that there's still hope. But unfortunately, Ty, this wasn't the end of all of this hardship either, was it?
No, no, we lost one of my younger brothers, Calder. Probably the one of the we're all close. All of me and my brothers are close, but Calder and I were the two redheads in the middle and troublemakers. And Calder was 6 years younger than me, so I was old enough that I tried to make Calder a better version of myself. Whether that was sports or school or whatever. Um, yeah, lost Calder unexpectedly, just only 2.5 years ago. So yeah, the same stuff all over again. But again, unfortunately, felt like I, was built to handle it, more prepared than most. But then seeing, my family, what it does to my family, and watching my family hurt. I've from Calder and Autumn both. I know that losing a child is a different level of hurt. From seeing Aud's parents and my parents. I know that they just have a different hurt than I do. I'm not not worse, not better, just a different level of hurt. So, yeah. So on those, transitioning a little bit here, we use this, to honor Autumn and to honor Calder and the lives that they led. And it's amazing how when you look back at some of their stuff, it's like they were ready, right? Both of them journaled and did things that were like, it's almost like they knew, right? And it's a weird, but in Calder's or in Autumn's memory, I vowed to fund Wish Kids through Make a Wish. I was a Make a Wish kid. Autumn was unbelievable with kids. Like, I feel like she was put on this earth to be a mother. Kids were just drawn to her. She always watched her nieces and nephews, and so we fund Make a Wish Kids in honor of Autumn. They're Autumn's Wish Kids. We've given almost $225,000 to Make a Wish in the last year and a half, and so dozens and dozens of kids have received wishes through us, and that's backed up by the endowment to the foundation as well as a life insurance policy on me personally. So if something were to happen to me tomorrow, Autumn will have Wish Kids forever. And then for Calder, Calder had just a rock solid faith, a faith that was built on him just questioning everything and having deep, hard conversations about life and purpose and God and religion and stuff that most people don't want to go there. They don't want to go. They don't want to get uncomfortable and have these conversations. And Calder do it all the time. And the outcome of that is his faith was just, I believe, unbelievable. I think he had a stronger faith and a more tested faith and a questioned faith than people that go to church every Sunday. And so, in Calder's honor, we are partnering with different individuals that are taking God's word globally. So we've sent money through South Dakotans, through South Dakotans we know are actually going to Africa, South America, and delivering Bibles and spreading the word directly. That's been our focus. Not South Dakotans that we have a personal relationship on, that we trust, that we know are going there for the right reasons. That's what we've been funding on behalf of Calder.
And you partnered up with, and you have to remind me of his name, a gentleman down in Arizona as well, correct?
So Bo Bendigo is a South Dakota, they're South Dakota family, Bo and Suzanne, West River, they were actually Bo customers of ours. They gave their ranch away and basically cut all their financial stability to become full-time missionaries. And yeah, part of what they've done, multiple international missionary trips. They moved down to the Western Apache Indian Reservation, one of the second highest crime areas in the country, to spread the word for a year and a half. I think they were there. They're back in Rapid City now, but Bo picked up and went on a small missionary group to Armenia. It was an Iranian holiday, so a lot of Iranians were coming across the border into Armenia to see family, and Christianity is outlawed in Iran. And so meeting these people at the border and talking to them, and I think they took 700 Bibles directly there through Bo. We trust Bo, and so us getting to fund Bo and pay for his trip and pay for Bibles, that's exactly the stuff we're trying to do. Craig Sievertson is a Sievertson family by Flandreau. He has a nonprofit called Helping Kids Round First. Craig gets on a plane almost monthly and is starting hospitals, daycares, Nicaragua, Africa, supplies, food, hospital equipment. And so we're funding Craig. When there's a 500,000 Africans in a Somalian, Chad civil war in a refugee camp with no shelter and little food and water, and you can't get in container ships to the east side of Africa, Craig's getting container ships to the west side of Africa and driving the truck across the Sahara himself to get the truck there. This is who we want to fund, And so it's amazing. I think God just makes these connections. Every move we've made, it's just like fallen into our lap, and it's like, yep, we got to do this. So it's been pretty cool. So we're going to continue to grow youth cancer survivor scholarships, Make-A-Wish kids, missionary work. Those are our three pillars.
So this brings us to the next thing. And so you started a gala, fantastic event, by the way, and it reminded me so much of someone else that I'd love to get on the podcast sometime, because there was some similarities to it. But I got to say, you had some courage and some confidence to say, I'm gonna for your first gala, I'm gonna do the Swift Health Center. You knew in your heart that you were surrounded by friends and family, and you knew that you were working with God. I got to believe, to say, I'm going to rent out the Swift Health Center, and I'm going to have hundreds of my friends and family and associates and acquaintances to show up, and we're going to put on this presentation, and we're going to raise money. And I was fortunate enough to be invited and be there. It's a would you say it's a semi black tie affair? It's a dress up affair. But talk about that gala.
Yeah. When I finally, when I told my friends, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to have a banquet, we're going to have a fundraiser, the friends closest to me said, oh, finally, like you've been talking about this long enough, finally, So, yeah, it's yeah, we put full faith in that this is going to work. We had, we pulled out all the stops, right? So we had, prime rib, dueling pianos, red carpet walk, photo, $225,000 net, which second annual gala we had last December. We had to move it to the Denny here in Sioux Falls, the Sioux Falls Convention Center. We had 850 people attend that one. We raised over $240,000 net, and we feel like we're just gaining steam. So our goals for this coming up gala on December 7th, back in Sioux Falls, we hope to have over 1,100 attendees and break the $300,000 net mark. So that's what we're striving for.
And that's, I mean, I tried. I will say it was very semi successful at trying to do something similar to this in my time in Fargo, and I think I got a whopping 75 or 80 people that came to this. And so in your second year, second version of this, Denny Sanford Center, 850 people. You know that God's at work when you're able to do that and get this much momentum, and know that you could go all the way to 1,100 people. And I don't doubt it for a second. I think that venue at the Denny um, was one that got a lot more attention. So I have to assume that there's going to be more people coming to it as well. And just as you said, Ty, it's done very well. Great food, um, and obviously the presentation and everything done is high class too. So it's a
Yeah.
wonderful event. I will share a link on this in this YouTube video as well on how you can donate into the site and ways that you can get involved if you want to come to the gala. But there's also one more part. You just had your second annual Summer Classic as well. If you want to share a little bit about that, my wife was just able to come up and volunteer for this just a few weeks ago. So tell us a little bit about the Summer Classic.
Yeah, it's kind of a deal we fell into to partner with a group, the Lake Area Walleye Club has had this for a number of years, but for the last 2 years, we've kind of taken over and been their partner. 2-day fishing, one first day golf, second day fishing, tournament up at Lake Poncet, and we're raising money for all of our causes. But yeah, we had Riley Reef come out, we had silent auction, all the things. So a little bit different feel than the gala, but it allows us to do two big events throughout the year. And, and to speak to them both, I think when you talk about why we've had so much success with the gala, not only do we am I a social person, and I got to meet so many awesome people throughout all the different aspects of my life that I love when people I know get to meet each other, because I just know so many salt of the earth people. And we pulled out all the stops, right? So the first one we said, we do say black tie optional, because if somebody wants to come in a pair of jeans and a button up and I ain't putting on a tie or a suit coat for nothing, great. We don't care. We just want to have you there. But people have taken it and ran with it. I mean, people know that if you're going to rent a tux or buy a tux or wear a bow tie, or gals have that, full ball gown, bridesmaid's dress, prom dress type of style, the gown that's too fancy for anywhere else, it's not too fancy for the gala. You can wear as fancy as possible, and there's going to be just as many people, right? So limos, people have gone all out and had a lot of fun with it. So we feel like we are the in Sioux Falls in the winter as far as a charity ball. If you're going to put on a black tie and a fancy ball gown for anything, it'll be for the Earn the Gift Gala.
I would agree. There's not that many. I've known some people that were there. They're typically, maybe some of them wear some suits, but there's a lot of folks there that it's probably the only time throughout the entire year that they're going to put a sport coat on, unless there's a wedding or a funeral or something along that line. But it is such a great event, and it's nice, and I think it's one of those, you're falling into the holiday season as well, and so it just becomes more elegant because of the timing of it, and to see how some of the people, like you said, they show up extremely elegant, the women's dresses and all that, and the men look quite dapper. So it just is a fun event to be involved with. And
yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't say, and what really makes it different is we have Make-A-Wish kids and families there. We have Youth Cancer Survivor Scholarship winners and their family there. We have these folks speak to the group, and we have a ton of them in the room. We have the Bo Bendigos and others that we've helped on the missionary side in the room, so people can see the faces and hear the stories of the people that they're helping and affecting. And I think it's a big community of people. Our mission is to be a beacon of light and a promise of hope to those who need it most, and when they need it most. And I think people have fun. It's a blast. We laugh. We have dueling pianos. We dress up. It's all that, but it's also, I think people walk away with a lot of perspective, a lot of, self-reflection, and you just think about their life and where they're at in the world. And I hope that we're filling people's cups up and giving them energy when they leave there. And I think we are, and I think that's why it resonates so well. And I think that's why it's grown, and I think it'll continue to grow, because I think when people go one time, if they get invited to somebody's table one time, there's a lot of, well, I'm going to get my own table and invite, I can think of 3 other couples that I want to bring to this. So I think we're going to continue to grow it that way as well.
And you just said it. I think that people will walk away with a different perspective, and all of the folks that are there and who's part of that presentation is important. But I'll be frank with you. The last two, I think I remember the most, and it's no different from this podcast, the way you kind of encapsulate that whole presentation at the end before we kick off, kind of the more of the party side of it. But Ty does such a great job of the encouraging word, and knowing what he's faced in the trials, the tribulations, and everything he's gone through. But you come and you stand in front of everybody with such poise and so much class, and respectful and humble. And there's a million other words I could use that describe you, but still don't do you any justice. But those are the two moments that I think I remember from both times, is when you finished, kind of finalized that last piece of it, and you're so inspired and encouraged to go out and make a difference. And I'm hoping that people, when they watch this today, get that same feeling that I got, because Ty, after all these years, your story is one in a million. There's just not that many people in Western civilization that have gone through, the heart wrench, and the experiences that you have. And if they have, they kind of come out. I'm going to say it. This maybe, I don't know if I'm saying this the right way, but they kind of come out on top. I mean, it's almost like you've taken all of these hardships and you've kind of elevated yourself and done it in a humble fashion. But it's exceptional. And I got to say, I'm so happy that I got a chance to meet you a few years ago. And although we don't know each other that well, I'm glad that I can still say that we're friends, even though we haven't really experienced a whole lot of time together. But um, you're just one in a million. And so that gala is one where you get a chance to hear Ty and listen to what he has to say. And I'm sure it's unique every year. And as you grow in your faith and in perspective, I'm sure every year it just becomes more and more valuable. Chuck,
Yeah.
I got one. Go ahead. I'll let you.
Yeah. So a couple quick thoughts. I think what I've always remembered whenever I'm speaking to groups and whatever is, this is just my story. This is what happened to me and what I think about it. But I think it's highly relatable because everybody has gone through, is going through, or will go through some really awful things in their life. Every single one of us. It's part of being a human, is suffering. So, um, it's not. I don't think I'm unique in that aspect, and I think that's why it resonates with so many people, because when I'm talking about stuff, or any of our speakers at the gala are talking about stuff, I think people are sitting there. I get that a lot. Like, man, I feel like you're talking to me. And that's that's it's important. I don't take that for granted.
No, you said it eloquently, or elegantly. I don't need to rephrase that at all. I got one. I'm going to put you on the spot because I think that it's important to hear for young people and for people that are longer in the tooth like myself. If you could go back to that, as you said, you felt like you had the world by the tail. I think at every moment we have winter time and summer times in our lives. If you could go back and talk to that 15-year-old kid or 14-year-old kid, whatever age that was, prior to getting that diagnosis, knowing what you know today, what would you say to yourself?
This is part of when I sat down to figure out what I was going to try to say at the last gala. That's a question that I asked myself, and I kicked off my speech with. And I'll start by, before I forget, to say, if people want to see, what the gala is all about, we could talk about it in the speech and whatever. But on our website, there's a 90-second, 2-minute recap video that could tell you that you're going to see more and understand more in 90 seconds than you will in an hour of us talking about it. So you can go and check it out. But back to your question, what would I say to my 15-year-old self? One of the first things I'd tell them is nobody's coming. Nobody's coming to save you. This is happening, and you have everything you need inside of you to deal with it. You do. And that will be hard for a 15-year-old to understand and gather and believe me and whatever. But I tell people all the time in my speeches, you have no idea what you're capable of. Zero. I mean, until you have to. And when you have to, you figure out that you're a lot tougher than you think, mentally and physically. Right? The SEAL teams, special ops, I mean, they write about this stuff, right? Statistically, when you're completely you're done, couldn't lift a finger, you're completely thrown in the towel. Your mind is quit. Your body is probably only halfway there. You probably still have another half to give. They've done studies on that kind of stuff, and so I believe that wholeheartedly. So one thing I say in my speeches is you got to keep moving forward. You have to keep your feet turning. If there's one piece of advice I could give you about how you survive things, it's you got to keep going. And some days that looks like climbing out of bed, right? That's you can't take a day at a time, take an hour at a time, can't take an hour at a time. Sometimes it's take a moment at a time. I'm gonna get through the next minute. I'm gonna get through the next 5 minutes. I'm gonna get up out of bed and go take a shower. Like you just have to keep moving because this too shall pass.
Wow, that was really good, Ty. I know you probably got to run. I can't thank you enough for taking time to share this. I mean, when I like I said, when I heard it, I was really shocked that I hadn't heard this or been exposed to your story before. And so it was kind of one of those driving factors of why I wanted you to be here today, is because I know there's so many people out there that haven't heard it, but it is inspiring. Obviously, there's drama involved in it, and it's heavy. But on the same token, everything, as you just said, shall pass. And so I'm hoping that someone gets some hope and encouragement from this. But taking time to do this with me, man, I really appreciate it. And God's helped. Like you said, God's blessed you in so many ways, and you're certainly blessing us with everything that you're doing. And the story that you're sharing today is certainly a blessing to me. So I wanted to say thank you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate the offer to be on here, and it's always fun to whenever I speak, I don't take notes or what I'm gonna hit on or whatever. I kind of just let it flow naturally. So it's new every time. It's genuine every time. So I enjoy the format of doing it this way. So thank you.
Well, I'm hoping I see you on December 7th. Folks, if you're interested, I'll have all the links, all the ways you go in there. Ty, if someone wanted to, I don't know what your schedule looks like for speaking events. If someone wanted to have you come and speak, is there a preferred method for them to make the request?
If you just go to my website, the tefoundation.org, which you have the link to, you'll be able to see information on the gala, which we're going to go live with ticketing and tables July 15th. So we're getting real close here. So those can be bought right on the website. But the gala's on there. Information on Southern Classic is on there. Upcoming places that I am speaking or how to request, me to speak. If you get to the website, you'll be able to find all that info.
Well, awesome. I'll post all that. So I hope people can take advantage of those sources. And then also, if you enjoyed this podcast and you want more of them like them, click on that like button and share if you think that this story will help somebody else. Ty, I want to say thank you. If I don't see you ahead of time, I hope to see you December 7th, and I appreciate this more than I can say.
Yeah, no, appreciate you having me, and I hope it doesn't take till December 7th. So
maybe we'll find a way.
Yeah,
We'll find a way.
knock on my door in the middle of the night again. Need a
Well,
place to stay.
yeah, they might be chasing. I might be getting chased out from the outdoors because of the mosquitoes instead of the cold
Yeah,
this time.
you're welcome anytime. So
All right, man. Take care of yourself. God bless.